Welcome to Warriors of the World, where we bring the most legendary leaders and warriors to life. Today, we travel to the heart of ancient Greece to explore the story of Leonidas, the Spartan king who led 300 warriors in the epic Battle of Thermopylae. A tale of bravery, sacrifice, and resistance against an invincible empire. Picture this: the sun beating down on bronze shields, the clash of spears striking in unison, and 300 warriors standing firm, forming an impenetrable phalanx. In front of them, the deafening roar of thousands of Persian soldiers, a force that seemed endless, commanded by the great King Xerxes. This is the stage where Leonidas would become a legend. Leonidas was born in Sparta, a city-state renowned for its devotion to warfare and its strict code of honor. From a young age, like all Spartan men, he underwent the rigorous training of the agoge, a system designed to mold boys into unyielding warriors. This training not only strengthened their bodies but also their spirits, instilling iron discipline and unwavering loyalty to their community. In 480 BCE, destiny called upon Leonidas. Persia, the mightiest empire of the time, led by Xerxes, invaded Greece with an army that, according to Herodotus, numbered in the hundreds of thousands. The Greek city-states, fragmented by rivalries, faced a common threat that demanded a unified response. Leonidas, as the leader of Sparta, made the decision to confront the Persians at a strategic choke point, the narrow pass of Thermopylae. This narrow passage, flanked by mountains and the sea, was the perfect location to neutralize the Persian numerical advantage. Aware that his mission was almost certainly suicidal, Leonidas selected 300 of his finest warriors, all fathers, to ensure their bloodlines would continue. He knew their sacrifice was not only for Sparta but for the freedom of all Greece. In the next chapter, we'll see how Leonidas and his 300 Spartans turned the pass of Thermopylae into the stage of one of history's most epic battles. Leonidas was not just a warrior but also a strategist. Before marching to Thermopylae, he gathered a small contingent of Greek allies, including Thebans, Thespians, and warriors from other city-states. Though the Spartans formed the core of the force, Leonidas understood that this battle was not just Sparta's, but all of Greece's. The pass of Thermopylae, known as the Hot Gates for its nearby hot springs, was the perfect strategic location. With a narrow choke point surrounded by mountains, the Persian army would be unable to deploy its full strength. Here, Spartan discipline and the phalanx tactic had the opportunity to shine against the numerically superior Persian forces. As the Persians approached, Leonidas arranged his lines with precision. The Spartans formed the first line of defense, their shields creating an unbreakable wall and their spears poised to meet the enemy. The Greek allies took up positions behind, ready to reinforce the line when needed. In the Spartan camp, the atmosphere was solemn yet determined. The warriors knew they marched to their deaths, but there was no fear in their hearts. Leonidas reminded them that their sacrifice would be remembered for generations. According to tradition, before battle, Spartans prepared physically and spiritually, singing war songs and ensuring their weapons were in perfect condition. When the Persians reached the pass, Xerxes, confident in his superiority, sent emissaries to negotiate. He offered riches and safety if they surrendered. Leonidas's response was brief and resolute: "Molon Labe, come and take it." These words not only defined his determination but also embodied the spirit of resistance that would inspire all of Greece. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the beginning of the battle, as Leonidas led his men against overwhelming odds, turning Thermopylae into a field of immortal glory. When the battle began, the Persian army advanced with confidence, thousands of soldiers surging forward like an unstoppable tide toward the narrow pass of Thermopylae. Facing them stood Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, alongside their Greek allies, waiting in a tight formation. It was a bold gamble, to stop an empire in a passage so narrow that only a few soldiers could engage at a time. The Spartan phalanx was a masterpiece of military discipline. Each man, armed with a round shield and a sharp spear, formed part of an impenetrable wall of bronze and wood. As the Persians launched their attack, the phalanx absorbed the impact like a solid barrier, striking back with lethal precision. The interlocked shields and long spears allowed the Spartans to maximize their advantage in the confined terrain. Xerxes' army, accustomed to open-field battles, was unprepared for such ferocious resistance. His soldiers fell one after another, unable to break the Spartan line. According to historical accounts, the Spartans even used humor to unnerve their enemies. When a Persian envoy warned that their arrows would blot out the sun, a Spartan famously replied, "Then we will fight in the shade." The first day of battle was a disaster for the Persians. Even Xerxes' elite troops, the Immortals, were repelled. Every assault was met with brutal efficiency. Leonidas led from the front, fighting alongside his men and embodying the essence of a true leader. The Greeks weren't just buying time, they were sending a message to all of Greece. Even the mightiest army in the world could be stopped. But Leonidas knew this was only the beginning. In the next chapter, we'll see how the Persians adapted their tactics and how a Greek traitor would change the fate of Thermopylae. After 2 days of battle, Xerxes was enraged. His army, which was supposed to march swiftly into the heart of Greece, was being held back by a handful of warriors. Persian casualties were immense, and morale was beginning to falter. Desperate, Xerxes offered rewards to anyone who could find a way to outflank the Greeks. That's when Ephialtes, a Greek shepherd, betrayed his own people. Ephialtes revealed the existence of a hidden mountain path that bypassed the narrow pass. This route would allow the Persians to surround the Greek position and attack from behind. Upon learning this, Xerxes immediately dispatched his forces to take the path under the cover of darkness, planning to encircle and crush the defenders at dawn. When Leonidas discovered the betrayal, he gathered his men. He knew the battle was lost, but he also understood that their sacrifice could buy time for the Greek city-states to prepare for the coming war. In a final act of leadership, Leonidas allowed many of his Greek allies to retreat and save their lives to continue the fight later. However, he and his 300 Spartans chose to stay, joined by 700 brave Thespians who decided to share their fate. That night was solemn in the Greek camp. The Spartans, aware that dawn would bring their end, sharpened their spears, repaired their shields, and prepared themselves spiritually. According to Spartan tradition, death in battle was the most honorable fate for a warrior. Leonidas, calm and resolute, reminded his men that their sacrifice would not be in vain. At sunrise, the Persians attacked from both fronts. Though surrounded, the Spartans did not yield. They fought with a ferocity that would echo through history, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy before being overwhelmed. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this final stand transformed Leonidas and his men into eternal legends and how their sacrifice inspired all of Greece to unite against the Persian invasion. As dawn broke, the Battle of Thermopylae entered its most critical and heroic phase. Surrounded by Persian troops who had exploited the secret path revealed by Ephialtes, the Spartans and their allies knew their fate was sealed. Yet, instead of surrendering, Leonidas and his men resolved to turn their final moments into an act of defiance that would echo through eternity. The Persians attacked with their full force, confident that their overwhelming numbers would finally crush the Greeks. But the Spartan resistance was ferocious. They fought to the last man, using every inch of the narrow pass to hold back the enemy. When their spears shattered, they drew their swords. When those failed, they fought with bare hands. Leonidas fell in battle, leading from the front as he had done from the very beginning. His body became a rallying point for the Spartans, who fought to protect it until the bitter end. According to Herodotus, the Spartans repeatedly recovered his body from the Persians, a testament to their loyalty and reverence for their king. The battlefield became a spectacle of courage and sacrifice. Persian soldiers, accustomed to seeing their enemies flee or surrender, faced a group of men who preferred death to submission. Even Xerxes, observing the battle from a nearby hill, was struck by the bravery of the Spartans. When the last defenders fell, Xerxes ordered Leonidas's body to be decapitated and crucified as a warning. But rather than tarnishing his memory, this act only strengthened the legend of Leonidas and his 300. Across Greece, their sacrifice was seen as the ultimate act of resistance and patriotism, inspiring the city-states to unite against the common enemy. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his men at Thermopylae was not in vain. Although the Persians advanced, the Spartans and their allies' resistance bought critical time for the Greek city-states to prepare their defenses. Months later, at the naval battle of Salamis and the land battle of Plataea, the Greeks achieved decisive victories, ensuring the survival of their civilization. But Leonidas's impact goes far beyond military victory. His story became a symbol of courage, resilience, and the power of a small group determined to stand against overwhelming odds. To the Greeks, Leonidas was more than a hero. He was a reminder of the values that defined their identity: freedom, unity, and the willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. The memory of Leonidas was immortalized in monuments and historical accounts. Near the pass of Thermopylae, a simple yet powerful inscription was erected: "Stranger, go tell the Spartans that we lie here, obedient to their laws." This epitaph, attributed to the poet Simonides, captures the essence of Spartan sacrifice, to die fulfilling their duty to their homeland. In the centuries that followed, Leonidas and his 300 became a model of inspiration worldwide. From military leaders to philosophers, their stand against Xerxes has been cited as an example of the power of collective sacrifice. In modern times, their story has been adapted into films, books, and video games, ensuring that their legacy continues to inspire new generations. Today, Leonidas is not just a Spartan hero, he is a universal symbol of resistance and bravery. His story reminds us that, even in the face of insurmountable odds, a small but determined group can change the course of history. In the next chapter, we'll explore how Leonidas's sacrifice shaped the Western world and how his legacy lives on in popular culture, from Thermopylae to the present day. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his 300 was not just an act of individual bravery but a catalyst that transformed Greece into a united front against the Persian Empire. Until that moment, the Greek city-states had been fragmented by rivalries. Athens with its democracy, Sparta with its militaristic regime, and others like Corinth and Thebes pursuing their own interests. But Thermopylae changed everything. The Spartans' resistance proved that Greek freedom was not an impossible dream but a cause worth fighting for. Stories of Leonidas's heroism spread quickly throughout Greece, igniting a spirit of resistance. Citizens from all city-states, from farmers to leaders, realized that the only way to defeat the common enemy was to work together. This shift in mindset led to an unprecedented alliance. Under the leadership of figures like Themistocles in Athens and Pausanias in Sparta, the Greek city-states coordinated their efforts through what became known as the Hellenic League. This coalition was crucial in later victories, such as the Battle of Salamis, where the Greek navy dealt a crushing blow to Persian naval power, and the Battle of Plataea, which ensured the Persian retreat from Greece. Thermopylae became a symbol for future generations. The idea that a small group, armed with determination and courage, could stand against a much larger enemy became a historical lesson echoed through the ages. In times of crisis, Thermopylae was remembered as an example of what could be achieved through unity and sacrifice. However, this unity was neither perfect nor lasting. Once the Persians were expelled, tensions among the city-states re-emerged, culminating in internal conflicts like the Peloponnesian War. Even so, Leonidas's influence remained a beacon, inspiring both the Greeks and the Western world. In the next chapter, we'll explore how Leonidas's legacy not only inspired Greece but transcended borders, influencing culture, politics, and philosophy throughout the centuries. Leonidas and his 300 left their mark not only on military history but also on the culture and philosophy of the Western world. Their sacrifice was not merely an act of heroism but a declaration of principles that has inspired philosophers, artists, and leaders for millennia. In Greek thought, Thermopylae became a symbol of Spartan virtues, discipline, courage, and devotion to duty. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle reflected on these values, exploring how individual bravery and sacrifice could contribute to the greater good. For them, Leonidas's actions represented the ideal citizen who placed the collective well-being above personal interests. Beyond philosophy, Leonidas's story found a place in literature. Greek poets composed hymns glorifying his resistance, while later works, such as Herodotus's writings, immortalized the battle's details for future generations. In modern times, Leonidas has been depicted in novels, films, and video games, highlighting his role as a universal symbol of resistance against oppression. One of the most fascinating aspects of Leonidas's legacy is its ability to transcend cultures and eras. During World War II, for example, Allied leaders invoked his story to inspire their troops, seeing parallels between Thermopylae and their struggle against seemingly invincible forces. In popular culture, Leonidas has been revitalized through films like 300, which introduced his story to a global audience. While the movie takes creative liberties, it captures the essence of his sacrifice and emphasizes the epic scale of his resistance. This modern portrayal ensures that Leonidas's legacy remains alive, resonating with new generations. Today, Leonidas is much more than a Spartan king. He is a reminder that true power lies not in numbers but in courage, determination, and the will to fight for what one believes in. His story is not just a tale of the past but a source of inspiration for confronting the challenges of the present. In the next chapter, we'll reflect on what Leonidas teaches us in the modern world and how his legacy continues to inspire debates on leadership, sacrifice, and resilience. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his 300 warriors is not just an echo from the past but a lesson that continues to resonate in the present. In a world full of challenges, his story inspires reflections on leadership, resilience, and how individual decisions can shape collective destiny. Leonidas was not a perfect leader, but he embodied a crucial virtue: leading by example. He didn't ask his men to do anything he wasn't willing to do himself. By staying at the front, facing the enemy alongside his soldiers, Leonidas showed that true leaders share the sacrifices of their people. For the modern world, where leaders often seem distant from the realities faced by their followers, this lesson of proximity and courage is more relevant than ever. Furthermore, his defiance against overwhelming odds serves as a reminder of the power of determination and unity. The 300 Spartans knew their mission was suicidal, yet they fought with a clarity of purpose that transcended fear. This ability to face the inevitable with dignity is an inspiration during crises, both personal and collective. However, Leonidas's story also invites us to reflect on the costs of heroism. Behind every sacrifice lie lost lives, broken families, and an emotional burden that is often overlooked. Greatness, as this story shows, always comes at a price. In the next chapter, we'll conclude this journey by exploring how Leonidas's legacy lives on in our culture, from historical monuments to modern films and stories. Leonidas is not just a historical figure. He is a symbol of resilience, courage, and sacrifice that has transcended borders and generations. His story didn't end at Thermopylae but continues to inspire debates, art, and reflections on what it means to lead and stand firm in the face of adversity. In modern culture, Leonidas is perhaps best known through his portrayal in films like 300, which captured the epic nature of his resistance. While these depictions often take creative liberties, they have also brought his legacy to a global audience. Today, his name evokes not just a battle but a philosophy: to never surrender, even when all seems lost. But beyond movies and books, Leonidas lives on in the values he represents. From military training grounds, where his story inspires soldiers, to discussions on ethical leadership, his sacrifice remains a constant source of learning. In a world where challenges often feel insurmountable, his example reminds us that even a determined few can change the course of history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of Leonidas and his 300. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with your friends. Let us know in the comments, what do you think of Leonidas? Was he a perfect hero or a leader bound by an inevitable fate? We'd love to hear your perspective. See you in the next episode of Warriors of the World, where we'll explore more stories of leaders and warriors who left their mark on history. Until our next adventure.